As the pandemic continues to grip much of the country, museums are hemorrhaging millions of dollars each day in lost ticket sales. Nancy Chen reports as many as 40% of these institutions may never reopen.
New York City's Tenement Museum showcases the struggles of immigrant families dating back to the 1800s. But now the museum is in a struggle of its own.
Without a firm opening date at this point, is it a matter of survival?
It is a matter of survival.
The pandemic forced museums around the country to shut down, putting many of those institutions in deep financial trouble. Laura Lott is president of the American Alliance of Museums and estimates the industry is losing $33 million a day.
There are no ticket sales. There are no cafe shop expenses. There are no events happening in their beautiful spaces. And so their revenue really went to zero virtually overnight.
The Tenement Museum has been holding paid virtual events, and its membership has nearly doubled in the past few months, thanks to a supportive community. But for this and other museums, it's not nearly enough to make up for the loss of ticket sales.
The drop in revenue was too much for the Annenberg Space for Photography in Los Angeles, which recently announced it's closing for good. Same for the Children's Museum in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and the World of Speed Museum in Oregon. Lott says so far, 20% of museums have reported being at significant risk of not reopening, and that number could eventually double.
60% of museums have done some sort of layoff or furlough. And many of those museums have cut deep, meaning they're laying off or furloughing 75 to 80% of their staffs.
The Tenement Museum is among them. Its president says its survival is vital to the community.
It's a place you go to reflect on who you are and what your society is, what your past is, what your future might be.
He hopes, with the help of donors around the world, to reopen to visitors and continue telling the story of the American dream. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
The American Alliance of Museums says museums contribute $50 billion to the U.S. economy, and they are now hoping for financial relief from the government. Still ahead at noon, the Mr. Food Test Kitchen goes international with today's recipe.